You have to be able to kind of spot whether your exec team is doing a good job of like creating urgency in the company for the change. So that's kind of one thing you don't necessarily like need a new skill to do. It's just kind of like an early warning signal, because that should kind of flick you into a mode of, are we kind of aligning people in the business on the need for this big change? Are we doing a good job on the internal comms? Are we helping everyone kind of understand what the common vision is? Are we helping everyone understand what the common logic behind that vision is? Are we helping everyone understand what the common plan to get there is?
You have to make sure your organisation is ready for change, and you have to make sure that the exec team are aware of the impact of the change and on board as well, because they're often the ones that are going to be driving that narrative and trying to make sure that the communication lands.
This episode is brought to you by Instant Impact. Instant Impact provides transformative talent solutions to small and mid-sized companies that are making between 30 and 500 hires each year. If your recruitment's giving you a headache and you don't know where to start, then give the team at Instant Impact a call or visit www.instant-impact.com for more information.
Hello and welcome to We Need to Talk About HR. I'm your host, Louise Fraser, and today I am delighted to have John Faulkner-Willcocks on the show with us. John is currently co-founder of OpenOrg. OpenOrg are an organization that support early startup people teams through community, consulting, and software and resources as well. And John himself has a super interesting career that should lend itself very well to our conversation today. So John started up in product and UX design, made his way through to an agile coach and transformation leader in some big corporate global companies before pivoting to startups, where he found himself in people ops and COO style roles as well, before starting up with OpenOrg. And OpenOrg is very successful in its own right. So they have a community of over 500 people leaders. They have supported over 100 tech startup companies and had their open resources downloaded over 1 million times. So welcome to the show, John.
Thank you so much, Lou. It's great to be here.
So today we're going to talk about all things transformation, AI literacy, and also maybe even touch on the strategic skills that it might take to move from a HR leader to a CPO as well. But before we delve into too many questions, I thought it might be quite interesting for us to take the listeners on a little bit of a journey through your career, because as we said earlier, it has been super interesting, and you do have a transformation background that has led you into advising people teams. So I just wondered if you could talk to us a little bit about how you think that journey and your technical experience has supported you in now helping people teams.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Lou. So yeah, I think my career is a bit squiggly, but basically I spent the first 7 years solving kind of big culture change problems for large companies, and then the second 7 years kind of working in startups. And in that first half, it was mostly transformation. It was mostly kind of post-merger, post-integration change. It was doing things with helping companies shift from like one operating model to a completely different one. So it was always business change that was cross-functional, so across the whole organization, and it always had a really kind of important central component around people and ways of working. And I think what was interesting when I transitioned into kind of startup land, most of the kind of gigs I was doing was COO work with a strong people lens, and that kind of skill set of leading cross-functional change, I think that was kind of one of the things I got known to do. And then when we started OpenOrg, Adam and I, when we were kind of consulting and advising, often people leaders who were kind of new to the role of CPO, one of the kind of gaps that they kind of kept coming to us for help and support with was this thing called transformation, or this thing called culture change. And that was kind of really interesting and good news for me, because that was kind of my background. And so that's kind of how it kind of dovetailed and worked together.
That's a really interesting piece that you spoke about there, in terms of finding that CPOs are coming to you more from a transformation lens perspective. And it's not surprising to me, because it's almost all we're hearing about at the moment, right? That people teams, particularly those that are at a strategic level, need to focus on transformation. I feel that it's always potentially been the case, but now with the new era of AI, we're hearing it more and more, and it's becoming a little bit more of a buzzword to have people leaders focusing on transformation. I also think, and I may be wrong, you might be seeing other things, that HR leaders are feeling a little bit overwhelmed by the idea of being in charge of transformation. Do you have any advice for CPOs, senior HR leaders that are wanting to sort of start out on that journey of like big transformation projects without too much experience behind them?
Yeah, I think so. There are a couple of things, and maybe a good way to start is kind of just like dissecting kind of the core components of like what a cross-functional transformation initiative looks like, and some of the skills that you kind of maybe need to deploy inside it. I don't know if that would be interesting to start.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah, so I think there are certain kind of ingredients, but I think the first thing is like you have to be able to kind of spot whether your exec team is doing a good job of like creating urgency in the company for the change. So that's kind of one thing you don't necessarily like need a new skill to do. It's just kind of like an early warning signal, because that should kind of flick you into a mode of, are we kind of aligning people in the business on, what is the kind of the need for this big change? Are we doing a good job on the internal comms? Are we helping everyone kind of understand what the common vision is? Are we helping everyone understand what the common logic behind that vision is? Are we helping everyone understand what the common plan to get there is? So the reason I say that and those kind of components is because you don't need to learn a lot of new skills, I don't think, to just like identify whether you've got gaps across that. So hopefully that's good news to people who are kind of new to the area. But I think, if you've not led cross-functional change and you've identified some gaps in there, and it's not something you've done a lot of before. And I think there are probably a couple of places I would go. One, go and speak to a peer who has. So my go-to for this has always been a community. Like, I love communities. I think they're amazing. Instantly, no surprise. Yeah, no surprise. And that's why we built one. And I think that's step one is like just asking in a Slack full of 500 other new CPOs, like, hey, I've just been tasked with this huge cross-functional org-wide piece of change, which is really scary. I've not done this before. Help anyone else done this? I think that's, for me, that's step one. Step two, I think, there's a bit of a learning piece here. I think, familiarizing yourself with kind of like a good way of approaching this, I think is another piece. And there's loads of different frameworks and stuff out there. I think probably still the best one to just like go and have a little nerd out on is Kotter's 8 Steps of Change. When you read it, it will be quite corporate, quite dated language. But I think if you can kind of look past that to actually like the core things you need to nail when kind of embarking on transformation, I think that's like another good place to start.
Interesting. You touched on a few points that were quite interesting for me, especially I actually not too long ago wrote a paper on Kotter's change model. As part of one of my CIPD assignments. So you've struck a chord. What was interesting in terms of the change piece there and around where you said to start was it's something that I've learned over the last couple of years as well, in terms of just really making sure that even the exec team know the reason for change and why it's a priority, and that it also aligns to the strategic direction of the business. And there's such a risk, right, in current day with all these new tools and all these new change programs, of us just running through a program for the sake of running through a program. And I remember doing a podcast with a behavioral psychologist not too long ago, and she said, you have to make sure your organization is ready for change, and you have to make sure that the exec team are aware of the impact of the change and on board as well, because they're often the ones that are going to be driving that narrative and trying to make sure that the communication lands, right?
Yeah.
So that's really interesting. Where, in terms of change, right, I think a lot of our listeners are in the space where they're being asked to create change with AI,
Yeah.
right? The buzzword. And I'm sure that through your community and your consulting, you have or are supporting some organizations with starting to think about transformation with AI. Where are you seeing organizations like do the right things when implementing AI, and where, I suppose, on the flip side, you seeing it maybe not go so well in organizations?
Yeah, no, it's such an interesting interesting theme, and you're right. Yeah, it is talk of the town right
Yeah.
now. So I think AI adoption, AI fluency, these kind of big like project banners, they're very, very commonplace at the moment. I think bad first and then good. So
Yeah, let's
I
do
think
that.
I think bad is just like one member of the executive team or an executive team as a whole, getting getting FOMO, and then kind of like communicating that FOMO without really any guide rails to the organization.
Yes.
The kind of on a pedestal, oh, we're not fast enough, or I heard about this other tech company whose engineers have completely adopted AI and they're tons faster, be faster, that kind of top down, zero context, zero thought, like mandate is not very helpful. It doesn't help folks understand like the guardrails, doesn't help them understand kind of the game that they're playing, right? So that's kind of the bad example, and we've seen that a few times in the last 6 months. I think where we see companies doing this stuff really well is they're kind of quite like empathetic, and they understand that there is this kind of undercurrent of AI is going to take my job, SOS, there's that. And so the best leadership teams I think that we've seen approach this, they kind of meet that piece head on first in their comms. So they kind of like either take the fear out of the equation, or they are very, very kind of precise with their communication about like, or very candid about kind of what might change and what won't change. So that's kind of a piece that they kind of spend maybe more focus on than those companies that kind of don't do a good job here do. I think the second thing that they do really well, another kind of ingredient for success with these kind of increasing AI fluency in the organization, is they'll kind of spend extra time really understanding and thinking about like what the opportunity is. So back to that kind of change piece, they'll kind of think about like what's the kind of AI enabled vision of our company look like 3 years from now. Well, it's quite a hard thing to do because it changes so often, and the pace of change is so fast. But they do a really good job of at least saying, our stance is we want to be a company enabled by AI. We think it looks like this in the future. This is kind of the driver behind it. This is why we're even talking about this. Next thing they'll do is they'll kind of label the kind of key measures of success. So rather than making AI adoption the outcome, they'll make the outcome about speed or efficiency or reducing waste or killing pain and annoying tasks, whatever it might be. They'll make that the kind of outcome, and then AI becomes the enabler or the solution to kind of like try and get there. So that's the other thing they do. Building on top of that, I think the best thing they then do is they create kind of like a safe and unsafe kind of list of stuff with regards to AI. So it's like, don't do this. This is silly. This is a bad thing to do. Don't do this with customer data, but this is okay. That kind of really like consumable, like do's and don'ts list, so that anyone in the organization can understand how to use it, what the tool stack is, and that just kind of like makes the whole playing ground safe. And then the final thing, so that's all the kind of prep work almost to make the kind of thing successful. And then I think to make it embed, the best thing that we've seen, and a few folks in the community have led this kind of initiative, is they'll take all of that as input. So they'll say, this is what we're trying to achieve. This is how we're trying to measure success. This is the timeline. This is the vision of our company in the future. Go and figure out in your teams. So they crowdsource. This is not top-down mandate. Crowdsource. Go and figure out in your teams what your 3 best bets or experiments can be to try and move the needle on speed, efficiency, waste, whatever that metric was. And the only rule of the game is you have to have some component of your solution has to be AI. That's it. And they give that to the whole company to figure out. Everyone spends 2-4 weeks building their own custom agents, building their own custom tools, building their own little mini products, whatever it might be. And the only rule then is everyone demos to each other. And so you create this kind of momentum. You create this kind of celebration of wins, learnings, funny failures, all of that. And that kind of just helps push the whole company forwards. So I think that's like that kind of hackathon approach is like one of the best ways to lead this kind of transformation.
I love that. I'm going to take that idea, pushing things further down into different functions. We've run some hackathons and come up with some super interesting ideas. So I think that the people, the team members that are on the ground and doing the day-to-day work, they have such a better idea of how they might be able to speed things up. So I think that's great advice. Now, what advice might you give to HR director who has been in situ for some time and has very much been focused on, more policy, business partnering side of things, and has, maybe wrongly so in your previous answer, been told that they are now, umbrella in charge of AI adoption across the business. Any like day one, day two thoughts that you could give them in terms of what they should start doing?
I think for that it's kind of like if you've received the the hospital pass, I think job one is to kind of push back a little bit if you're not clear on like what this thing is like. I think that's easier said than done in with some CEOs in mind, but I think I think there is a piece there which is like you have a right to understand like exactly what outcome the company's trying to achieve here and how we're going to measure success of that. And I think you can that's kind of job one, day one, hour one, minute one. So work with the exec team to properly kind of like define it. That would be kind of job one. Then with regards to kind of like leading the change, I think what we kind of chatted about just now, like maybe provides like a little bit of a blueprint. So that would be kind of like the skeleton. But I think there's probably like a really important piece here, which is like now is probably the time, I think, to if you're having any kind of like discomfort yourself with this, or any kind of like technology phobia potentially, or any kind of like, oh, am I behind the curve? I think I address that as well. So, and there's great fun ways to address that. So my advice to anyone, especially if you're working in a technology company, would be, build something yourself and show your team and lead out like that. So, use a tool like Bolt or Lovable, one of these kind of new generation kind of AI tools that can kind of take your idea from a sticky note and turn it into a working, albeit internal, piece of software that your team can get value from, or the rest of the business can get value from. So I think that would kind of be a little bit of meta advice, is like, do that, share your own personal learnings with your team, and then kind of use the people team, your team, as the kind of almost like vanguard of the change throughout the rest of the organization. I think that's really powerful because it kind of positions you as a facilitator and enabler of the change, and also someone that's kind of leading out from the front. So it's like, hey, look, we experimented in this fashion. We had these 3 problems in our people team. I ran this hackathon with the team. I built this thing. This person on the team built this thing. This person on the team built this thing. Together we agreed these are the 3 that we want to take forward because they're really, really useful. We'd love, if anyone else is interested in doing this kind of pattern in their functions, like come and talk to me. It creates kind of pull for the change like that. So I think that's quite a nice way to do it as well.
I love that. Let's get all HR leaders vibe coding.
I think so. Yeah. Can we? Maybe that should be the
tagline,
the podcast banner.
Yeah. And maybe taking us slightly off piece, but I know that you are pretty big into building out resources and software yourself. So whilst we're on the thread, I'll pull. Is there anything at the moment that you are building or thinking about building to support people leaders that you're excited about?
Yeah, no, definitely. You have to slow me down if I talk too long or too much on this. Hundreds of interesting. It's kind of mostly what Adam and I spend most of our time. Adam's my co-founder. Mostly what we spend most of our time doing at the moment is so when we're consulting, we're building lots of custom agents with people teams as part of that transformation. So, that's really fun. I love doing that because it's plugged into their context, their unique pain points, the unique thing that they're trying to do. And there's some of my favorite things are like one team used to take like 40 hours to analyze their full engagement survey data, theme it, do the quant and qualitative analysis, prepare the executive report. And with them, we built just a really simple custom GPT it was that does that whole job to a really good V1 that still needs a human check, but it's still a really good V1 in about 25 seconds. So that's just like, I love stuff like that because it's so tangible. But beyond that, most of my kind of build time, I suppose, is spent on our on Adam and I's software product, which we kind of think of it as OpenOrg Studio. So it's a subscription product that we built for people teams, and it's got all of our consulting playbooks and how to run change and all of our sort of how do I do X project. It's got that kind of on there. But what we're really excited about is we've built kind of our own mega agent for people teams, which as Lord of the Rings fans we've called Gandalf.
Of course.
Hopefully the trademark lawyers don't come knocking, but if they do, we might have to switch that up. But basically, Gandalf kind of does lots of common jobs to be done for people teams, like automagically. So reviewing a job ad, generating a role profile, manager one-to-one pieces, building a competency framework from 0 to 1, survey analysis that I spoke about just now. It does kind of a whole armful of those. And why we're quite excited about it and why I love kind of the build aspects of it is kind of where ChatGPT, Microsoft Copilot, all of these, the kind of the user interface of most of the AI models at the moment, whilst they're good at kind of taking your own company context and giving you kind of more precise answers, what they don't do is kind of plug into a very, very specific niche, early stage HR, internet set of resources, knowledge base, and examples from other companies. And so because that's what we've been building as a company for the last few years, that's what we kind of power it with. And it's really, really cool.
That is super interesting, actually. And I think that from conversations I've been having this week, actually, about something we're building from a data warehouse standpoint, is that by and large, where you're going to get your differentiation from is like what you do as a business and what you specialize in and the data that you have access to enable you to provide insights that can't be pulled within organization or that other people don't have access to. And I suppose that's exactly what you're doing. So I love that. That's very, very cool. And then obviously to talk about another passion of yours, hopefully, you mentioned community earlier, and obviously OpenOrg have a very successful community that I am very proud to be a member of as well and have benefited from. I wondered, why in the first place you set out to build the community and where you've seen the successes of the community, I suppose, empowering and enabling other people leaders as well.
Yeah, no, sure. It is. I mean, community is life would be my tattoo if I had one.
Well,
yeah, maybe that one too. I'm gonna have a lot of tattoos by the end of this pod. But no, I think so why we built it. So my co-founder, he sort of founded businesses before OpenOrg, but he kind of tended to wear the chief people officer hat in those businesses after it kind of got him off the ground. And then so you had him kind of coming at community from that angle in a place of like, I don't have a lot of peers that do this role, like, because he'd always kind of done it had been founder and then into kind of founder chief people officer, that had been his role. And so he was kind of coming at it from that angle like craving it, but it not really, there not being that many well curated or managed ones that you could kind of find. And I was coming at it from when I made the hop from big companies into startups. Like my early jobs in that role were all kind of people opsy type gigs, and I was kind of doing stuff I'd not really done before. In many cases, there were sort of some quite specialist areas of HR that I had no experience in, and frankly, not really much training in. And so I was kind of like coming at it from a desperate, like day to day. I need help. I don't want to screw this really important thing up. Panic. And when you back in the day when you searched on Google or you tried to hit up a forum, it would just be very corporate, like very big company, very traditional, old-fashioned, gross advice. And so we kind of both were like, there must be a better way. And that was kind of when we discovered like HR Slack communities. But even the ones that were kind of out there at the time, they were either massive, and so there was like 10,000 people all in this like very busy Slack, and people weren't getting like a lot of engagement. There wasn't a lot of help requests being answered. It was just more like a giant news feed.
Yeah. Some are still like that, right?
Some are still like that. I won't be, it's not my place to criticize. Frankly, anyone, helping to run any kind of community is my friend for life. Like, I genuinely, but I think, we spotted like that there was an opportunity to do something a little bit different. And so, we decided to build one that was like deliberately small. So we cap at 500 people. We keep it small. We make it small so that everybody kind of knows one another, which kind of helps build relationships. That I hate the word networking, but it is networking, but in a nice way, non-ick way. And we kind of run like quite deliberate live events every month as well, from hackathons to working sessions where we sort of take one person's problem that's really interesting for everyone and kind of like work through that together. And we just we moderate it like pretty religiously as well. And so those are some of the ingredients I think that help make it it's my favorite place on the internet anyway.
Look, I know I have asked for help on the Okinawa community and had reams of people offer to take me through their way of doing things as well. So I think that's in itself like speaks to the success of community. And I know working in a small HR team, the importance of reaching out to community. And sometimes it's you think that you should know everything, right? You do, but the people leaders remit is just getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
And so if you can ask for help, you should, and community is a great place to go for it. But now I can't believe it, but we are running to time. So I'm gonna ask one last wildcard question. I'm sort of interested, right? You have access to you consult with a lot of organizations. You have a lot of people asking questions in the help channel. What is the biggest problem that you're seeing come up across the people leadership network at the moment, and what is the biggest piece of advice that you would give or have been giving to that problem?
Goodness, that is a tough one.
I know, I like to end on a biggie that makes you really think.
I think I don't know if it's the biggest problem, but it's the one that has the most kind of like emotion and pain around it.
Yeah.
I guess I can maybe think of one or two of those maybe.
Let's do it.
So I think there's kind of like my leadership team is like not working well as a unit, and how do I kind of fix that, like in a way that isn't gonna alienate me or kind of make my job harder or make the company kind of worse as a result. So it's a very like tactical, kind of thing you might look in the mirror in the morning and just be like, oh god, I don't want to deal with this again. But that I think that deserves a mention. Is like a dysfunctional leadership team and a CEO who is absent from fixing that, when in my opinion it is their job to fix.
Yeah.
And so we get a lot of folks trying to, thinking that maybe it's their job to solve that, or how do I help my CEO like
realize.
And so that definitely deserves a mention. I'm not sure if that's kind of what you're expecting, but I think beyond that, kind of I think that the big ones are like real pain around like big cross-functional business change is kind of definitely a top tier one. So like we've just merged, we've just acquired. How do we integrate? These are typically, if acquisition isn't your growth strategy, that's not something you've necessarily like had a ton of experience doing, and that kind of culture change piece is a very difficult project to get right. Lots of people complexity involved. Haven't done it before, so I think that one probably comes up to the top in terms of like project problems, project pain.
Yeah, and that's sort of your bread and butter, right?
Unfortunately so.
So you get reeled into those ones.
Yeah.
So I imagine it's big, right? You're looking at everything from merging systems to cultures to leadership teams, etc. And I don't think we have enough time to completely unpack that, but where does one start usually with those types of things?
Well, we actually have a bunch of free open source resources specifically on this. Like if anyone's interested, they can just check out resources on our website, and it's like there's a couple in there if you search for those keywords that you'll get. So that's like a good, just very tactical thing you can go and have a look at. But for me, it's like I think with any kind of M&A work, it's the job one is like understanding what is the value that's being kind of bought, and really pushing typically the CEO, the exec, on like making sure that you're getting the whole truth on that. Because if you don't understand that, all effort is kind of muddied in some regards.
Yeah.
So what I mean by that is like, are we buying the company, or are we merging with the company because it's the team is world class, and we have to have that team because they're so amazing? Is it the product? Is it the customer base? Is it new, expansion into new market? Whatever it is, you need that first, because then your transformation project kind of needs to like bend the knee to that always.
Yeah.
And what I've seen happen quite a lot is people either doesn't get the full picture from the CEO, which is unfortunate, or it's misunderstood, or it's forgotten, and therefore the project just becomes kind of like we just need to sort of make this work, as opposed to we really need to like focus on that value that we need to protect. So that's like the other kind of tactical thing I'd focus on.
Love that. And we will make sure that we link out the resources in the podcast bio, so that we can get our listeners some easy links to have a look a little deeper into some of your suggestions. But we're about time. So thanks so much, John.
Thank you very much for having me on. Loved it.
It's been a pleasure. Let's go get our vibe coding tattoos after this. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.